Hey, Rob, how you doing,
Very
buddy?
good, good. What's up with you?
I've been having a really super interesting week. I mean, this week, this week was like powerful in a lot of different ways. I meet with Chris every week and we give a forecast for the whole week of Astro Mondays. And last 2 weeks, he's been so dead on. And he says that we're coming to a crescendo this week. Today we're in a spiritual day. It feels like a cloudy day. Like some people feel unmotivated, like they don't know what to do. And then tomorrow, it's a decision day. And then on Friday is a day we're supposed to take some sort of action towards this new vision of who we are, what we've been doing, what we've been thinking. And it feels like that. Like I made some big decisions this week, starting on Monday, and actually was kind of through last week it was building up because I have one of the things that I've never done, and you've asked me about this too, is where's that book on fascia, on my belief on the body, and all that stuff. I haven't done it on purpose. Well, I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to do it in a book. I'm going to do it over 12 classes, one class per month, so people can get because you can't read this and intellectualize it. You have to touch it, feel it, be a part of it. So I'm going to do it as a seminar series once a month for 12 months. And it's basically once you do the fascial maneuvers, what happens at the next part? Like, how do you live your life? What happens? How do I believe? How do things like chakras, or how do things like urine therapy, or how do things like managing my emotions and all that, how does the energetic play into my physical health? And why am I doing what I do? So I'm gonna be breaking that over. And I made that decision starting up last week. It was ramping. I'm going to do a class, an advanced class. And then it just kind of built. And then Monday, I'm like, no, I'm going to write the book, but this is how I'm going to do it. So that was my week. What was yours like?
Nice. So mine's similar. Mine's similar. I did a presentation at Conscious Life Expo. I spent all weekend there. It was amazing. Um, so 3 days there, and that and when I was there, I got invited to speak at four other conferences, and then I determined, similar to you, that all right, I'm going on this path. I'm going to be speaking a lot more, and all of these talks, because I'm preparing for them, I have to find studies, I have to find stories. I can then easily translate that into a book or a course of
Mhm.
some sort, and that has to go hand in hand. That gets to go hand in hand with the talks. And for me, it's more about the elements: light, air, earth, water,
Yeah.
ether. And then eventually, when you connect with that, you definitely do also get to align your emotions, your thoughts, your actions. But it's similar to what you were saying with fascia, and then the internal and the mental and the emotional mindset comes as well. It's the same thing with the elements and how I work that into the human experience. You connect with the elements, but you really only can connect at the level that you're internally connected as well.
Yeah. And this is where I'm going, is that in order for us to connect with the elements, we have to clear our crystal.
Right.
But people are trying to do it just by eating the right thing. Well, a lot of people are trying to do it with their mind. That don't work. That's why we're
Intention only.
here in this. Yeah, and then a lot of people trying to do it by they think that they're eating, or they're eating the right way, they're taking the right things, they're using the right tools, and they're still not quite there. And what the journey we've been on is to connect at our side. And I've spent enough time, lived with you, hung out with you, that I know that you and I just we're definitely on a different frequency than the other people that that we're around. And that the gap between this is what I always found. You have these programs, and then you have this master of the program. He becomes an ascended master. He goes off and he does this stuff, but there's so much distance between that person and the practice that they started, or the belief that they started, that people get caught up in the belief or the practice and they can't make that jump. That's what I found.
Between the guru and the practice that they start.
Yeah, like if I look at a lot of people, like like I made an assumption. I made some assumptions. I know assumption. That's making an ass out of you and me. I got
Right.
it. But I made some assumptions about some people that had other practices, colleagues, let's say. And as I started to talk to them, realized that they're way that they're no longer even almost identify with the practice that they created. And I'm at that point where what I do is so different than what people starting to do in fascial maneuvers.
Oh, I got what
And
you're saying now.
and now what I want to do is but I don't want to just continue. Like I'm happy to continue on my path. It's almost like the point where I don't want to do it. I don't want to do that part of the work anymore. But I made a commitment to help people. That's what I want to do. I mean, my journey is to help people transition. And so now I want to share that part of the journey with them. Hey, by
Oh,
the way,
like stage two.
yeah, by the way, everybody, if you can do me a favor, go down to the button on the bottom right-hand side, the arrow little thing. For whatever reason, our algorithm hasn't picked up. Like we are like 200, 300 people short of what we normally be. Can you, that one right down there beside Raw on the right-hand side of your screen, can you hit it? Send it to your partner, send it to a friend, send it to a whole bunch of people. And then what it does, it tells the algorithm because there's something going on up there. It's not quite kicking it. I don't know why.
So Gary, let me just rephrase what I'm hearing, because I had a similar thing with all of the things that I've taught and coached before. You're saying that what you started off teaching, you are on to maybe phase two or maybe phase three, and but you haven't been sharing that, and now you're going to start sharing that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I've shared elements of it. It's not been a cold. I've been telling people along the way, and letting them into different parts of this. But I don't. But I feel like I'm getting too far away,
Mm-hmm.
and and I like for me, I was going to do the book, which is the real belief. Because one of the things that we haven't done on purpose is we haven't told the world what we really believe fascia is and how it works. I mean,
Right.
we've talked about the pressurized body, we've talked about the maneuvers and the fetal position, but that's only the scratching surface. That's what we discovered in 2018, 19. But the part of how I see fascia functioning, and then that changes the whole, because we've said the bones are a structure. So what are they? Well, we need to go a bit further into that and then talk about how I see fascia working in concentric rings, ones that you can't see, but you can feel. And you felt on my body when I do that. I can move my fascia and it's like a whole layer of slides. Well, people that they're still thinking fascia is a coating of a muscle, and
A
some of them are
wrapping.
starting to think, yeah, and it's not that.
Right. I mean, that's how we pick up our groceries from the grocery store. So that's what we think is going on in our body. It's so
Yeah.
funny
So
how we're programmed.
yeah, and it's because for me, like, and here's another thing too. People ask, well, who are your mentors? Who do you follow? Who do you study? And I used to have a way of saying, well, I'd give them a couple names of people that they would know or they read, and I'm like, because I didn't want to sound arrogant or ignorant or are not even non-respectful of other people. And my mentors have been nobody. And my mentors have been my own experience in my body without anybody telling me anything else. And when I figured out, like when there was periods of this time over the last 4 years where I remember there was like 3 months I could barely walk up a set of stairs, and I could easily have Jason and Cynthia fix it for me. But I'm like, no, I want to figure out why. I want my body to figure out. I want to figure out, and that's how the hip release came. Because I'm like, there's something wrong here. I just got to I couldn't figure it out. And then I laid down, I did it one day, the hip release opened up, and then instantaneously it went away. And that's part of the journey, right? It's part of the exploration. In order to create something new, we can't go to something that already existed. We have to reference. So everything is all of humanity, all the stuff that we talk about where we had these powers and these ancient abilities and stuff like that, it's there. I know it's there, but our current education and knowledge of the body and how it works can't get us there because it's what's actually limited us.
And there's the fundamental belief that the answer is within a doctor's recommendation, or the answer is within a study only. And people are almost like basically ignoring their own experience in lieu of waiting to see if a study proves it. And that's just not how reality operates. We have a body with us right now that we can do our own experiments on. And there I see the comments in your guys' posts, and there was something you posted where you said you started off this statement saying, I've worked with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, and in my experience, dot dot dot. And then you get the comments, well, where's the studies? Where's the studies that prove it? And it's like, he just said he's been
That
working
is
with
the
all.
study.
Yeah, like, what are you guys talking about? Just because it wasn't, published in a political, like that's all politics too, the whole science thing. Like, people, because I've worked with psychology. I have a degree in psychology. I've been working with studies and looking at research my entire adult life. And it's surprising when if you've never done that before, if you've been watching football your entire life, when you actually looking beyond what the media tells you is science, and you actually start looking at actual research studies, you'll start to find out that all the scientists are arguing with each other. Some say this, some say that. It's all being newly discovered, and whatever makes it out into mainstream is essentially just serving the agenda. It's they're just cherry picking what serves the agenda, just like everything else. And so science is really an internal job. We get to make we can look at the studies, we definitely can, but we really have to look at all of the studies, and then it's up to us to make our own choice. We can't leave it up to the journals
You know what?
or the politicians to tell us what is the right
When
choice.
I look at a study, it prejudices my experience.
And then there's that.
So this is where because what happened was is I went through this journey of trying to fix my body. I went for 20 years, spent $2.5 million, hundreds of practitioners from all over the world. And then I became a clinical practitioner, and I used all of the best medicine, best doctors, and had them in, learning from them. That's where I learned my trade. Then it's taken me the last couple of years of that, and all the way to here, which is now about 6 years, to shut all of those studies out of my mind so that I could see something new. So basically, I learned everything up to a point, but then it failed. And if you think the science in the body is valid, I mean, that's where the problem comes in, because I say this all the time. There's 2.25 million proteins. Proteins run every function of the body. We only identified 50,000 of them. We only know what 5,000 of them do. And so we only know what 5,000 out of 2 million do. So there's no way that we can accurately say that we understand the human body. That's like saying because I have a bay here and I've studied my bay in that ocean, I understand the ocean. There's like no
Right.
flipping way.
Right. And that gives us permission to make our own assessments and judgments on what it actually is. And I think that we're taught in school that we know all there is to know, and we
Yeah.
don't. I mean, even the science of like stepping on the earth, and like, from a Western point of view, this is like 20 years old. We've just now, like, and for the first 10 of those years, everyone was calling Clint Ober, who was basically like the modern day discoverer of earthing in 1998. It was literally like just a couple decades ago. Everyone called him crazy for the first 10 to 15 years. So we've only really got mainstream adoption and looking into it for like 5-10 years. And like, what about the rest of us who's been doing this our entire life? Like, that experience is more valid than any science that can come out with it.
So what we've done is gone through this journey, documented our experiences, and shared them in real time. What does science do? Is it gives you a precept, gives you something to do, lets you document it, and then report it back, and they statistically pull it together to draw analysis, and then they see if they can repeat the same experience. We have literally hundreds of thousands of people now that are doing this. and millions of people that are participating starting to, and hundreds of thousands of people. That makes it the largest study on human beings in a contained period of time. Because what you do in a scientific study is you go get a bunch of people to take the drug or the protocol, and you have somebody interview them. We have the people, we've taught them how to evaluate what works and doesn't work, and had them report it. And this is what's crazy is that we are running the largest scientific experiment, I believe, on human function in the history of mankind, and we're currently in the middle of it. Because we get between 400 to 1,000 testimonials a day in some sort or story, or we have people journaling not only their physical experience. Could you do a drug study? Did you break out? Did you not? We're like, but I felt this way. I thought this way. My relationships were over here. I had an argument with my wife, and it triggered an old memory, and some trauma came up, which none of those studies actually encompass. And we have all that, and we have people reporting that data.
Fascia is a great example of science gone wrong
Yeah.
because even just the whole muscle system. First, basically when you're starting to look at the human body, we go to the butchers because the butchers are the ones that have been cutting up animals for years and years. So you go to them and you're like, hey, how is the body put together? You know this from animals. And they're like, they're slicing everything like this. And so when you look at textbooks, I mean, I went to school for exercise science. I took anatomy and physiology. When you're looking at the muscle system, it's just all like little pieces. And then there's a bicep, and there's a quadricep. And you don't realize that that's part of like a long, huge chain that isn't just long linearly. It's also, it's spiraling out from in to out in a way that we couldn't really conceive before. And what's exciting to me is the concepts that you're creating and your team is coming up with is just the beginning. Like it's got to be just the beginning. So whatever.
Just scratching the surface.
Right.
I literally, people, I have a, here's what I say is that when people ask about the science, I'm like, you know what? That's a really good question. What we have is a whole bunch of results. And so we don't have science yet, but we have everybody fixing scoliosis, getting out of autoimmune disease. We have all the results, and those are documented. People are bringing medical reports and all that. So the results are there. You're right. We have a belief or an idea. We have a movement system and a way to care for the body, and we have all these results. So in between it is the science. And so and that science needs a theory. So I have a story of why it works. And I'm completely open to the fact that that story might be completely wrong.
Mm.
And that's the power, is that I want you to prove another way, not prove me wrong. I want you to add to my story or contribute in another way from your experience and everybody else out there experience, because we can't argue with the results. Science, a peer review doesn't necessarily have results. It has a sliver of results that is measured and is made an assumption on. We have millions of results now. So this is the fun part, where this is where what we're doing together, Rob, and part of what we're doing is we're putting it out there and we're showing people the truth. Now science has the daunting task of trying to explain why it's true, because you can't argue with it's already there.
There's so much stuff I'm thinking about that is still yet to be uncovered. Like what sort of, well, I know that you have like a diet regimen, but what exactly is fascia made of? Is there sounds that impact it differently than other sounds? Does it respond to color? Does it respond to emotion? And just like the energetics and even the physical component of it. But I am curious, do you have do you have an answer for what is fascia
Yeah,
physical?
yeah, I
And
do.
what's it made
I do.
out of?
I
Is
have
it collagen?
I have a very clear answer of what it is, and I'll share a little bit of it today. But first of all, we are trying to define the body from the inside, from this experience outward. That, that's not going to work, because you have to, in order to look at a map, I can't look at where I am at, the city. I have to go to the country or the globe and then look at it and look at where the city is to really get perspective. So before we can define fascia, we have to define what is a human experience.
What's it in?
Yeah. So basically, measurable by all kinds of equipment, including thermography, satellites, all kinds of equipment. We can measure a field of energy that's a human experience, which is about 6 feet for the normal person. People like you who are managing their field, that field will often go to 20 to 30 feet. But it's a ball of energy. I don't see it. You don't see it. Some people do. They call it an aura. So, but a dog sees it. Lots of animals see it. Lots of reptiles see it. Lots of species see it. So that's where fascia starts because it's a container. Part of that container is so dense that you and I can see it. It's so low frequency that the naked eye can see it. That's where what we call fascia starts. But that's not where it really starts. Because think about when we're born, the sperm fertilizes the egg, and then a ball of plasma grows. And in there grows a little musculoskeletal system. And in relationship, that musculoskeletal system to that plasma ball is the same relationship in size as that field is to us right now. We're still inside the womb.
So the womb, got it. And the womb's essentially the map.
Yes. Now, fascia, now the next part to do this is let's put the whole body into centrifuge. Let's spin it at millions of revolutions per second. Let's break it into atoms. What comes out when you squish and centrifuge the body? What comes out of us is sand, water, and cells of bacteria, viruses, and parasites. That's it. Even the bones are gonna. Oh, look at see. even the bones, if you spin it hard enough, it's gonna break into its elements. Right. That's what we do to break something down. So basically, the construction of a human is sand and water. That's why in the 28-day reset we show. Well, what does frequency do to sand? It makes it vibrate, as you've seen on a plate, and into geometric patterns. The higher the frequency, the more organized the patterns are. What does water, what does electrical current or frequency do to water? Well, it makes it spiral. And if you use a sine wave, it spirals backwards, upwards. So if you have sand and you have water and you put frequency on it, some of it's going to vibrate and create this crystalline structure, which at the higher frequencies, you see it looks like mesh. What is our fascia? It looks like mesh. What does water do? It spirals up. The gravity, which pulls sand and pulls, gravity has, I know we're not going to argue about gravity, but generally the force pulling us down, okay, is when we have an emotion, it's heavy. When we have a bone, it's more weighted. It has more density. So the more density it is, the more it's pulled down to the earth. So emotions are heavy. They feel heavy. They feel restrictive. They feel like I feel so heavy from this conversation. But our thoughts are electric. So the emotions are magnetic, pulling us this way. Our thoughts are electric, pulling the water. So the water gets pulled this way, and the sand gets pulled that way. And with the vibrational frequency, which is the Schumann resonance, and then the frequency of our field is inside of us is a perfectly shaped human. Now, when that field is malfunctioning, it's like, well, I'm not so perfectly shaped anymore. I'm scoliosis, or one of the limbs isn't working. But the answer isn't to fix here. The answer is to fix there. Because even if I move this out and make it work, eventually that field is going to pull it back. This is why therapies don't work. This is why no matter what you do, if you have a pattern that's dysfunctional in your body and you build a new pattern on it, when you stop doing the work to function on that pattern and you take the work away, then the body will go back to its lowest or most dysfunctional pattern. So that's why strengthening a muscle to create a result in a body to stand or look a certain way eventually fails. If it didn't fail, then everybody at their elderly would look perfect, but they don't. They're like,
because
you're right.
that's the homeostasis of the field around you.
Yeah, and if you have muscles which are constricting, pulling me down, muscles constrict movement. So if I have a muscle pull me down and I have nothing to pull it, no energy to pull it back up anymore, it constricts. Like, how does somebody go from 6 feet tall to an older person at 5 foot, 5'4"? How does that happen if bones are structured? They don't. It's like we get shrunk down faster as a structure. The bones capitulate to the structure. And this is why building muscle, this is the first time in human history where we can see the direct impact of an action on a society by building muscle. It started off as me back in the 70s as a bodybuilder, Arnold Schwarzenegger, one generation above me, but they were just 10 years ahead of me. But I was part of that next generation. I went to the nationals in 1989, and I was that generation of bodybuilders that people looked at. I was the guy that everybody wanted to be. I was big and buff. And then what happened was is I started getting more and more and more restricted over time. It's like, well, guy, it's like when I went out and worked with some guys in the industry and they're doing anti-gravity, they can't get their hands back. Never mind
My
squat.
arms used to fall asleep just from sleeping. Like every single night, I would wake up and there would be no blood in my hands,
Yeah.
just
And
because.
that's two things. That's the compression, but it's also the compression of the fascial tissue, which people mistake for nerve compression. That's why people that have their hands going to sleep, they go to their doctor, the chiropractor, and goes, "Well, your nerves are okay. Like your nerves aren't doing it. So what is it? Why do you feel that tingling? Because there's no flow." So this view of the body is how I explained how I got into dysfunction and then how I got out of it. And I guess part of it is the reason why I hadn't written the book is that getting the release and getting out of the pain and the dysfunction was only one step. But I didn't want to write it down until I was in performance. Like I didn't want to talk about performance because I wasn't there yet. I was still unwinding all the shit. But this last 6 months and like this last since I saw you last, Rod, my body has changed more since I saw you than it has in the previous 4 years.
I mean, every week you look different. Like, because I don't see you during the week. I mean, I notice a difference how you look today versus last week.
Yeah.
So, like, every time I feel like telling you, you look good. But yeah, I'm noticing a little bit of difference every week.
And I get up and do my morning maneuvers. You know, when you work out and you're stiff the next day? I get up
Hmm.
and I do my morning maneuvers right now, and I feel stiff even at my fingertips because it takes me a minute because my body is moving so much every day. It's like a workout, even though I'm just doing fascial maneuvers. And, and like getting beefy fascial.
Yeah,
And
I knew somebody who was really big into qigong and those sorts of arts, and he was showing me some things. Actually, it's Jason, the one of the managers or the buyers at Air One, but he was having me get into these postures and holding the position, and he wasn't explaining it as fascia, but basically what he was doing was essentially like igniting the fascia, and that's what they would do for exercise, even though there was no real movement involved. It was all about sending electricity or photonic energy into the fascia, and that's what makes them essentially powerful and strong
yes,
and able to fight.
yes, because really our strength comes from the field. Our power comes from the field. And what restricts our power is a restriction. Muscles create restriction. Like I've done this with you before, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So everybody try this with us. Take your hand, open it, get your best range of motion. Get as much as you can with your hand. Okay, now close your fist and tighten it and do the same thing. You lose range of motion. That means that if I grab my hand and work out, I'm working out or building muscle in a restricted range of motion. So I'm restricting my range of motion. That's why as a bodybuilder, I started to move like this. And I went around and looked at, told people and made judgments about people who weren't. And I said, that's fit. That's healthy. But the truth is fascia is with our organs. That's the way, that's our processing power. So if it don't move, it don't work. And this is your brain or your function, not here. So if it's not moving, it's not working. If it's not working, there's a part of you that's limited. So if you limit a range of motion, there's a part of your psyche that can't connect to that field.
I have a challenge for you.
Sure.
Come up with a new definition for fitness. So I'll give you two examples. CrossFit's definition for fitness is power output, and power equals force times distance and the amount of time that it took you to do it. So from a CrossFit standard, you're fitter if you can do the same amount of work as somebody else, but in half the amount of time.
Yeah.
Or you do more work in the same amount of time. So work could be run a mile, it could be deadlift 400 pounds 20 times, but that's the definition.
I think we have to take a step back and define what fit is.
Okay.
Fit,
Hold on. Let me give you the second example of a definition, because that's so Mick Dodge, who I spent time with, he used to live in basically the wilderness for 10 years, sleeping under trees and stuff. And his definition of fitness is fitting into nests. So his definition of fitness is, can I fit into the nest of nature? Am I able to fit into the city nest? Am I able to perform tasks in different nests of living? And so his definition is all about the city versus nature and everything in between, and being able to complete tasks within those environments. You're able to fit into the nests. So those are my two examples. And then, yeah, let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take that. I'm going to take that as part of what I'm going to contemplate through this series. And so I'll talk about it. I don't have an answer for it right now, but we define fitness, really is the physical exertion on force or matter in nature to create a task. But true fitness would be able to do it, to manifest it technically, and to do it without my physical being, like with success, like someone who's smart thinks about everything, but someone who's wise takes someone who's smart and did all the thinking and then uses it. So that's the difference between wisdom and brains or smartness. So I would say the same thing occurs because we've been limiting our view of the human experience to what we can do physically. But we know, even from the brain's perspective, there's three regions of the brain: rear, middle, front. The rear brain is highly dominant on hormone distribution, regulation and usage of the hormone. It also engages the cerebellum and homunculus. The homunculus is how hard do I grab? How far is it? What's the distance? The math. And the cerebellum is so it's not like this.
Coordination.
It's like, yeah. So what we're measuring in all of our fitness today is the rear brain back. But and part of the example that we give is that we say that the brain and the muscles don't move fast enough to move the body. Muscles cannot move the body because they don't even respond fast enough to stimulus. The example is, you've heard me say this, right? You step on a piece of glass, how do you move?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we say it's this that can't be that way because then I step on glass. That is a good point. But I don't. I move intelligently one way to safety, which means that before my brain knows there's danger, something's moving the body. Our assumption, our theory was it's the fascia because there's nothing else left. Or it's magic. I mean, it could be magic, but who knows? So,
God.
so the idea of the muscle, the brain moving muscles in the body was something fascia is moving it, but how does fascia know where to move? How does it know to catch a ball like that? Well, it's basically it's interpreting the information from our field. Just like when I read, I read like this, but I'm following up this with this company that teaches people to read with a blindfold and then play ping pong with a blindfold, then play tackle football with a blindfold. In other words, that my eyes are just literally interpreting energy or signal. There's never a problem with the eyes. There is the brain's ability to perceive. And because when we lose partial senses, we learn how to function without them.
Mm-hmm.
And then super athletes, they have this. You've seen that one with the baseball, right? Where it hits a baseball, it's going to hit the reporter, and he just goes, catches it and throws it up. Well, that command has to come from somewhere. So the idea is fitness cannot be measured in here. Emotion precedes motion. So I have to have a desire before the cerebellum, homunculus, and the hormones fire. If I have no desire, because we can take away, we can block your desire with chemicals. Yeah, I think I want to move. I'm hungry,
Oh,
but I'm not going to move.
and that stops your
Yeah.
movement.
So we have to have an emotion, a
Right.
desire before we move. So emotion has to precede motion. Emotion is the communication language between your field and your biology. It's energy in motion.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually your biology has a field and it's moving into the body to then move externally. So emotion is the communication language.
And that's what the heart is interpreting
Well,
the field.
The heart. Well, no, that's part Math Institute. All of the organs interpret the field. The heart coordinates the emotions so that the brain talks to the brain so it can coordinate the actions that the fascia is already moving. The fascia is moving the body. The field and the fascia already moves the body. Then the muscles stabilize the movement. The muscles have a further stabilizing force, which is the bone.
This is there's a bunch of studies on precognition where they have random generated images and people can start to respond to the images before the machine even picks out what the images are. So they've got blood and terror images and they have flowers and blissful images, and they can start seeing that people's bodies are responding before the machine even picks out which image is going to show
Yes.
up.
Yeah.
And then all the random number generators that are all over the earth,
Yeah.
those all start to switch during significant events like 9/11.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you're expanding it a little bit because if the heart is just part of the fascia, right, as opposed to this significant organ. I mean, it is a significant organ, but what you're making me realize is that it's essentially like a piece of a bigger picture, which is the whole field.
So if you watch Unwinding the Heart from Guy, whatever, we have it on YouTube, Unwinding the Heart. He dissects a heart. And in the dissection of a heart, um, uh, yeah, so that's okay. It's okay. So he dissects the heart, and when he unravels it, he says, "Well, the heart's not even a pump. Technically, it's a centrifuge. It spins, and the lungs, or where the heart sits in between, are actually what pump it. The circulatory flow will happen regardless of the heart. It's going anyways. The heart just is a part of the circulatory flow. And when he unwinds the heart, he takes apart and he opens the layers. He proves my theory of fascia because you can see layers of muscle, fascia, fascia, muscle, fascia. Every organ is an amalgamation of the fascia with all of the layers that it's used to work in this world. And that's the muscles in the layers of fascia because with the body's fascia is a neural network. Like if you put a mesh in here for your hernia, the whole thing is what they want is the body to grow over that mesh to integrate it to make it stronger. It's like mesh. It's the same thing they do for a concrete wall, retaining wall. They put mesh in there and they put all the dirt and stuff around there so that it holds it. Well, what is that mesh replacing? It's the mesh of the fascia. Like when a baby's born, it doesn't have quadriceps and biceps. They don't look like that. It has a ball of goo, and that goo is all fascia. And as the baby starts to move and create structure, it lays down on there, it lays down on that mesh, it lays down little fibers which become muscles. Now, I know that people here haven't dissected a baby, but if you have done a baby's dissection, you'll see that they don't have, I mean, think about it. If you're dissecting it from an autopsy, if you've done this, babies don't have the muscles formed the way that adults do.
I actually didn't know that. I just never thought about that.
Well, because if we showed it, first of all, it's kind of like socially wrong to even talk about it. But if you showed it, then you would have to explain, well, how the muscles got there. Then you'd have to explain that how muscles really build. And when I leverage this force over and over again, the fascia is moving the body. And when I keep doing that force over and over again, it starts to lay down these other tissues, which become muscle. That's how the muscle gets bigger. It's laying on the mesh. It's laying within the fascia. And that's what muscles are, because, one of the things that I got was earlier when I was studying it was, well, think about the muscles. They have fascia. They said, well, fascia is through the muscle. It goes all the way through the muscle. And it's around the muscle. And it's around the whole body. And it's all one piece. And I just said, wait a second here. A muscle is a formed unit you can pull out. How can it be in it and around it and the whole body connected it? Like physically, from a physics point of view, that doesn't make sense. Unless the muscle was grown, laid on, unless the fascia was all webbing and the muscle came afterwards. And it was built because we built our muscle to stabilize movement within a specific range of motion. But if you electrify the muscle, it just like you put electrodes on your tendon, it goes boom. You let it go, it goes boom. It doesn't go, it goes boom, boom. So muscles, when they get the charge to move, have an unintelligent motion within a range of motion. They got 3 biceps here, 3 triceps here. So it knows to have the force in the main one, the 2 second ones stabilize the backwards forward so that it goes poof. It doesn't go like this, but it goes this. So it knows, because in nature we go like this. We don't normally go like this. So it knows to grab something and hold it. So it uses those two. You have a muscle, you have a minor, and you usually have a minor, major. A minor, medium, and major. So the muscles are known, but if you fire them, they have this short, jerky action. So that's another reason why muscles don't move the body. And then the other part too is, how is it that a gymnast who's not a bodybuilder, pound for pound, is stronger than most of the powerlifters? Right. And if you be a CrossFit athlete, you're the perfect example of muscles aren't the most effective way to move the body or create strength. Some of the strongest people in the world, if you look at that Anatole, he's a power lifter.
Yeah.
And he's on TikTok all the time. And he goes in like a janitor. And you got all these big guys, and they're like doing and they're like barely do these power lifts. And he's like, oh, just let me move it. The janitor, he picks it up, he goes like this, puts it down, moves it, picks it up, or picks one up with one hand, moves it. And he's this skinny dude. So if muscles equal power and force and strength or fitness, then how is it that he's doing it? Because he's not even very muscular.
You're right. So the answer is density. That's the answer that the gym people give, is that the muscles are denser on a stronger person.
Yeah,
Where a bodybuilder,
but how about this? How about this? If I'm going to move my shirt, let's just say, let's use the current model of fascia. It's a coating, but it's connected the other one. So if I get a restriction in my fascia between these muscle groups here, I now have trouble lifting my shirt. I have a restriction. So if I remove the restriction, I have less muscle, less force to get that action moved. So if I reduce the restriction, I become more powerful.
oh, so
So this is why
the answer is
today,
reducing restrictions makes you stronger.
right, because you use less energy to exert your muscles in a biomechanical range of motion over force. Now think about the other part too. Fascia has a breaking point of tensile steel. That's 50,000 pounds. Your muscles will tear easy. So what's literally what's
I mean,
stronger? What is that?
that's actually what does tear your muscles, is there's a signal that the muscles can't handle. Your body's moving. So there's something else that's moving the muscle that's tearing the muscle. It's not the muscle tearing the muscle. It's something stronger.
Exactly. So the muscles are the weak guys in the block. They're not the powerful guys. I mean, this is already proven science because I know that from that side. And then it's, you take a look at it this way. So the question is, it's like, how does movement happen from that model downward? Well, the movement happens from energy. The more dense, the harder the energy has to move the matter. So the lighter the matter, the easier the energy comes from our field, and emotion is the language. If I want to lift something that's really heavy, it's like, right? I use more emotion to do it. But if it's
Okay,
if it's,
now I get your
so,
example.
yeah. So,
I was wondering what you were trying to demonstrate with that, but yeah, I get it.
so the idea of everything from square one, what we've been taught, what I learned, because I became a bodybuilder, I perfected the muscles, I fixed people's muscles, only to find out that it didn't work. And then in my own body, I went, well, today I can put you on my back and run up a hill, a 45-degree hill, without even really busting a sweat. I don't bust a sweat. I hardly even breathing heavy. That's because my circulatory system, which is in the fascia, has less restriction, so it doesn't have to push as hard to get through it. I don't have as much restriction, so when I lift, I feel lighter. I feel like I'm 14 years old. I'm 174 pounds, 175 pounds. I haven't been this weight since I was literally 13 years old. I fought in judo at 175 pounds. I'm my 13-year-old body weight, but I don't look like I'm like 175 pounds. I look bigger, and I'm in natural range of motion, not lifting a barbell, but lifting a human being and moving them
100,
around. I'm
yeah,
infinitely stronger than I was.
175 pounds at 13 years old is huge.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big kid, but that's also why I was at. That's why when I was 19, I was like going pro bodybuilding.
That was an amazing start of an answer to what fitness is. It was, it was.
Well, we have to answer the question, like, and I think this is what you're going to help me do, because it's what it's the elements. My ability to translate the elements through the light and the photonic parts of the energy. The clearer those fields are, and the cleaner my crystal is, the more fitness I have. I think the word fitness is wrong because fit has a, a way of thinking,
Right.
and wellness is still a way of thinking. And this is where I'm now want to show people performance of the human body, because what happens when you get done with fascia maneuvers and all the restrictions gone? I'm literally at 98% restriction free. Like I think I'm there. It's like that's why my face and everything's changing every day. So I'm excited about what's next. And that's what I'm going to start sharing with people starting April.
It's essentially like right now we're capable of one human being's worth of fitness, right? Because we're reliant on the physical body. And that's like a horsepower, like 1 horsepower. But if we develop a new engine or a new way of moving things within reality by using the field, then we're able to maybe build the pyramids, without physically lifting those rocks up, because we have capabilities, we have a fitness, fitness isn't the right word when we're talking about going into the field to manifest into physical reality, but that's the direction that we're headed, and we're going to be
Fieldness. What's how do you define fieldness?
right. But yeah, that's like we define engine power by the amount of horsepower that it equals, right? So we have like 300 horses this engine produces. Eventually, we're going to have capabilities that are going to be able to do 100 humans worth of energy produced in an intention. We're going to
Yeah.
be able to develop our capabilities towards that direction.
Yeah, I think you're, like, and this is why I like spending time with you because you're analyzing all of this stuff. Like when you talk about a color, colors have an impact on the way that we feel and move. And we did that meditation the other day where we took and we worked all the colors through our body. Remember that?
Hmm.
And what I wear, what kind of clothes I wear, how clean is my crystal determine my fieldness. I'm just
Field.
trying it out to see if it
Right.
works because you're right.
Yeah. I mean, it impacts your reality. Another thing that's happening is the manifestation abilities are, I mean, I've always noticed how much I'm manifesting, but it's like it went up another level, I would say, in the last week. Like
Yes.
like like 5x.
What
Like
do
we're
you, what
like,
do you, how do you, out of curiosity, how is it showing up in your life? Like, what are some, because for me, I get little things that shouldn't happen that do happen.
yeah, it's like literally like thoughts are immediately happening as me and my wife. Let me hold on one. My wife and I are thinking them. And so it's not, I mean, major things I really have no ability, or I have no, that's no issue for me to manifest cars and money and houses, and major things are easy. Like I've noticed that for a while, but now I'm like just having random thoughts, and they're like, and then 10 seconds later, another random thought, and then boom. So like, for example, I don't even, it happened like 3 times over the space of like 10 minutes. But one of them was I was at an electric charger with my car at a big parking garage, and the charger wasn't working, and I was trying and it wasn't working, and I was just thinking all the other chargers were filled. Okay, so all the other chargers were filled. The parking cars were stacked on top of each other in this parking lot. Not really, but everyone was parking illegally, and so I'm like, crap. I didn't say crap. I was just like, well, I need another charger. And as I was thinking, I need another charger, like a woman started speaking to me, saying like, hey, I'm blocked in, because all the cars were blocking all the other cars. She's like, hey, I'm blocked in, can you move your car forward out of that spot so that I have a spot to drive out? And because she was blocked in, she was leaving another charging station, right? So I didn't see her before, but just the thought of like, hey, realizing like I need another charger, and then boom,
Yeah, not
like
the
it's
problem. Your thought, I want something, not I have a problem. This ain't working.
yeah. So, but that happened like 2 other times while I was in the trunk of my car thinking something, and it's just, um, I can keep on going, but they're silly. They're not even like, it's not life changing. They're just silly things that,
Yeah,
like,
but you get enough of those silly things happen to you every day, 30 times a day, that becomes life changing.
Right.
See, people go like this, like they say, I get this all the time. Oh, I want to use my free will. And I'm like, you're at the point right now where you're being forced to make a big decision because your free will was to make 1,000 little decisions along the way that you chose to get here. So your free will is those 1,000 little decisions. And so it's those little things that are silly that add up to a big thing because you're faster in your day, you use less energy, you're not getting angry or frustrated, you have more emotions, you can think better, you can have perceive better, your serotonin, dopamine are higher, you can see more connections, you have more options in everything.
Yeah. And then you realize that that's the remote control to your life, to reality.
Yeah.
And you start relying on your emotions, your thoughts, and connecting with the field and the elements in your body. And you start relying on that as what is actually moving around your reality and not necessarily your physical body controlling everything. There's something that originates it that we have access to. And I feel like so I always say that manifestation isn't something that it's not a skill. It's not something that you work on. It's something that's always happening. What we know of as manifestation is just you noticing that you're manifesting. It's like
Yes.
you putting the dots together to realize your control, your ability to manipulate what's going on, your steering wheel, essentially. It's like making itself realized. And the word manipulate, I don't really like, but it's something like that there's not a word for. It's more,
So you're basically, and what you're saying is the truth, which I want people to hear. We constantly manifest everything all day long. So if you don't like what you have in your life, you got to check why you have it because you manifested that shit.
yeah, it's a choice. It's always been a choice. And people don't like to hear that. And they immediately go to, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about a child getting abused in a different part of the world? Because they just want to ignore how it could be true for them. So they try to, but you can answer those questions if you first accept it within yourself. Then it gets some of those harder, difficult questions about, like, why does war exist? Why does these things exist? It allows you to start seeing a possibility for why all of that is happening for everybody else
You
as well.
know, Ron, I get this a lot because we have a new parents group coming out. Hundreds of parents have been using our belief systems and our maneuvers and our processes to heal kids off of cancer, spectrums, everything you can imagine right now. And and I get this a lot because it's like the question is why did that baby like why did it deserve like brain cancer? And I'm like, if we think of the human experience as just us being a human since we're born and we die, then that's a tough one to swallow. But if a human, if we became human to have an experience and that experience was to be hurt or to be tortured or to have cancer, and then I have my free will, I choose to either go through and thrive through that experience, or I choose to become a victim and die from that experience. So the baby made the choice. Babies are more conscious than we are. We're the ones that are unconscious. We become unconscious at 12 and 13 years old because we become like so accustomed to the rules that we forget that there's all this other stuff around us that actually is there. So it's back to the what is human? How do we define the container? And I think that, no, I think that's what I'm going to do for people. I'm going to say, I redefine my life. The reason why I'm changing so much is because I redefined my container.
Right. You've expanded yourself,
Yeah.
and you've expanded your concept of self, and it's expanded beyond from the time you're born to the time you die.
Yeah.
It's larger than that. I want to kind of finish off because I know we're getting to the end of our time by saying that I channeled. So I've only channeled twice in my life, and that's because it's the only times I've tried. I just got really relaxed put myself in front of a computer and just started typing the words that came to me. And one was light, light being light. That word actually means the might of love. That's what light comes from. But then it went into talk about soul, and soul meant soft oil. And I got this image of a machine that was all of our souls and very malleable. And what would happen is in this huge functioning machine of a bunch of different souls, there would be harder ones. And those would be like the criminals, the ones that are doing injustice onto others, and or diseases or war. And basically those things are happening. So the souls around those harder bits would get even more soft. Soft oil is what soul meant in this whole dream that I was having. But it was like we need these challenges so that we can reflect and evolve in our soul's evolution, because it's not going to, this place isn't going to offer a lesson or a growth experience if everything is just easy and perfect. So there are difficult things in our reality that allow us to evolve and to grow and to question and to ascend.
Yeah,
And
we were taught that perfect was easy, but the human experience says differently. We grow when we have stimulus. Stimulus is something that's uncomfortable. That is literally the way that a human being grows. Without stimulus, we don't grow. We don't even breathe without stimulus.
right,
We
right,
create pressure. We use adrenaline to expand the ribs. And then when we release, and then the ribs touch to the, and it creates a spark. Breathe. So it's stimulus. And when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, humans change. So it's redefining what is hard, like what is like the criminals, as an example. If it wasn't dark, we couldn't have light. And if it wasn't something hard, we couldn't have something soft, because the hard malleates the soft. That's what you're saying, the oil, the goo, until it becomes oily. And it's like you squeeze a nut enough, it becomes oil.
mm-hmm.
We're just nuts.
Yeah, and you just mentioned breathing. Next week we should talk about bone breathing, how we
Let's
can
do
bring
that.
in energy through the tips of the fingers and pack it into our bone marrow.
Hey, we do that. We talk about it up here because it affects this one. That'd be very humorous.
Yeah. Humorous. All right. Well,
Okay.
you are very humorous.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you, Rob.
Well, enjoy your fieldness.
My
Is that it?
fieldness. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. My fieldness. Yeah. But you gave me, that's perfect, because this is the stimulation I want now, because I'm putting context to how I'm starting in April. It's a worldwide program that people can follow once a month. I expect somewhere around like between 5 or 10,000 people to do it. And what it is, it's going to basically write a hard code, all this stuff that I've learned, so that I can share it with people. Because I honestly believe that there's a period of time. I don't feel like, I feel like I have a limited amount of time to do this.
Right. It's now.
Yeah, and I feel, because I feel that whatever's coming in our world, whether we evaporate or turn into light, or whether our bodies leave, I don't feel permanency in the current state of awareness. So I'm looking forward to a change, but
Yeah, we as humans we need to be able to adapt to those increased energies that are
yeah.
happening. And like you said, it might be a solar flare, but being fully integrated in the fascia and in our field is necessary for that. All right, bye everybody.
Bye, Ross. See you next week.